Well, welcome to this episode of the Whiskey Neighbor. Today, I was trying to think of what's exciting me right now, and I'm still pulled into Canadian whiskey and the local distillery or the micro distillery that's opening up across the prairies. And so I thought I would give it a chance to review Last Mountain Private Reserve Wheat Whiskey from Saskatchewan. This will be my review. So it was a total surprise for me when I was visiting Saskatoon. My daughter does Irish dancing, and we were there for a feis competition. And I thought I'd go, look into some local liquor stores, talk to some people, see if there was something I should try. And I came across a fellow that was in the store who kept talking about a distillery just south of where we were or something, and they made a vodka, a pickle vodka. Well, I haven't yet broadened my tastes to include vodka and flavored vodka, so I knew that's not where I was going to go. But then I saw, when I was looking in the Canadian whiskey aisle, this Last Mountain Private Reserve whiskey. And of course, it intrigued my eyes. It's got a nice sticker on there saying in 2017 it got a silver in the Canadian Whiskey Awards. On the back, there's another sticker. In 2013, they got a bronze. And so you quickly pull out your phone, you do a little search, and I thought, well, this is a pretty cool story. The Last Mountain Distillery, as I've read, and you can simply go online and search up Last Mountain Distillery, and you'll find that they're in Lumsden, Saskatchewan. I'm just looking at the back of the bottle here. And it's a pretty cool story. Colin and Meredith Schmidt, it's a family-owned business. They started this. I do know, because I've read, that Colin used to be a professional hockey player with the Oilers, which would be definitely my team, but I've never been an expert at sports, so we won't talk much about the hockey side of this, but I thought this is a really neat story. And what's interesting is this is a wheat whiskey, 100% wheat as far as I can tell, and they've aged it for about 4 to 5 years in ex-bourbon barrels, but then they take it out and they age it in new oak, in a charred but just a 10-gallon oak barrel. I couldn't find how long they aged it for in that finishing, but I think that might be why some of the characteristics that I pick up on this whiskey are here. So let's give it a pour. This is Last Mountain Private Reserve. This bottle is a little bit different than the one that I read about being reviewed by the Canadian Whiskey Awards, because this one is 45% alcohol by volume, whereas the one that they were reviewing was a less alcohol, and I couldn't find the reason for that. So might be some of the reasons why I might pick up some things that they didn't, or they picked up some things that I didn't. So it's a slightly different version than the one that the Canadian Whiskey Awards reviewed. But let's give it a bit of a nose. Oh, it's a very interesting, kind of a light nose, really. When I try to get into it, there's a little bit of unfinished booziness or alcohol there that I think might be because of its age. But it's also interesting, there's a bit of spice comes up right away, a little bit of oak maybe coming around. Probably a good idea to let it sit for a little bit. I wish I knew more about the Lumsden Distillery. I think it's great that there is a local distillery in Saskatchewan, and that they've already put out aged spirit of their own, which I think is fantastic. I hope that we find more of these, as I know that the Canadian laws, and I should really look into it if I'm going to speak with intelligence, but I know that laws have recently changed to allow for more micro distillery, for some smaller businesses to open up. Before that, it was pretty you had to have quite a high volume of production if you were going to be a distillery. Now you can have smaller runs. So I think that's interesting. And I do see a lot of local distilleries here in the Rocky Mountains that are just starting up. So they're starting up into gin and other spirits that they can sell right away with aging, but I know they're all putting away barrels of stuff. So I should, like to do my reviews up front, so I should get back at it. Almost a citrus zest on the nose. Yeah, but playfully spicy. Very interesting. I'm going to give it a short taste here. You can see for the color. Sorry, I should probably hold that up in a way that you can see. It's not terribly dark. It has some nice legs coating the glass there, but it's kind of a light-looking spirit. So we'll give it a taste. Yeah. So I enjoy this whiskey. I remember the first time that I had it. I was surprised, right? It's local. It wasn't terribly expensive. It's pretty young. And you're still going to find that if you drink this whiskey, I think you'll find the sweetness intriguing, a bit of bready notes in there. I'm definitely catching a little bit of citrus. For me, a bit more orange, less lemon, sharp citrus. Just kind of a bright flavor to it. Not too much nuttiness, not a lot of smokiness, but really quite an enjoyable whiskey. I would definitely enjoy sharing this with friends. But you will notice the alcohol with this. It's not, maybe because it isn't aged long enough or hasn't been smoothed out enough, I'm not sure, but you definitely will notice some of that alcohol will come up in the burn. If you're new to drinking whiskey, this might be a little rougher than you're going for. But it certainly, if you've enjoyed a few and you've liked stronger whiskeys, that won't bother you at all, and you'll be able to get at the flavors that are going on. Let's see if I can catch a few more. Yeah, I think I would say this tends towards vanilla notes that you get from wood, not as much of the caramel notes. I'm really not getting a lot of smoke or char. It might speak to age, but I can tell the wood is there, and it's coming back now that I'm thinking a bit more about it. But light, interesting, and fun, and definitely a quality whiskey. I immediately went out and followed the Schmitz on social media. I immediately looked at when were they releasing anything, and I thought they were releasing a rye, but I haven't seen it in Alberta yet. So if you have any information about their rye, please put it in the comments or somehow get it to me, because not give me a bottle, sure. I just mean get me the information, because this would be a distillery that I would keep my eye on. I definitely like this whiskey. It is a bit young, but the flavors are great and interesting. Finish is nice, maybe medium length, and fairly approachable. A little bit burny. But aside from that, I would give this 3.5 stars if I was using a star system. And that kind of brings me to my recommendation, but I'll just finish it that way because I've been reviewing things with stars. So I would say this is a 3.5 star, pushing 4 on a good day, whiskey. So very nice. I would give it a try. Absolutely. Definitely where it was priced at, and the uniqueness of the story and the bottle, and to support a local micro distillery. Absolutely. If you've seen it, buy it and enjoy it. That brings me to something I wanted to talk about in the podcast or the video show that I'm running, and that is how I rate whiskey. I was asked by a couple people, because some of the ratings that I have seem a little bit low when you compare them to people that clearly know more than me, expert reviews you'll see online, or if you follow Jim Murray's Whiskey Bible or whatnot. And I realized my rating system is really personal, in the sense of, would I want to have this again? Would I share it with friends? Or would I really, I'll finish this bottle off, or it's going to go into mixing and then we're not going to bring it out again. And maybe it's not very authentic for me to do a star rating or a real point system. I do a point system review as best I can, and you'll find that on Whiskey Base. That's where I put my reviews. But maybe in the context of this video cast or this show, I should really just talk about recommending it or not recommending it. I look at the Scotch Noob online. I don't know the fellow behind it, but I've seen his site a few times, and I like the way he rates things. The way on his whiskeys, he really just says, recommended, not recommended, must have, that kind of thing. And I think I'll be looking at my reviews and looking for that type of review system to put in place. But I'm not quite ready to roll it out. So just like today with this Last Mountain Reserve, I gave it a 3.5 stars. I'll stay with the star rating system until I change, and then I'll try to go back and change all of it so it has a context. Having said that, even without researching or figuring out the graphic I'm going to use or how I'm going to say it, it's fair to say that each time I pour a whiskey, I do in my mind say, do I want to have that again? Or do I want to share that with friends? Those are sort of two, or will I mix it? Will I have it neat? That kind of thing. And I would say in that context, this whiskey I would share with friends. I would love for them to tell me the story of Colin when he was playing for the Oilers, or I'd love for them to connect with, really, Saskatchewan? I didn't know there was a distillery. So the uniqueness of this whiskey makes it a must try. But the flavor notes in the profile, this is quality whiskey. They are clearly taking their time, learning the craft with stilling their grains, aging it as they can. They're really only that old, so they can't really have an older whiskey than a 4 or 5 year old whiskey. And then trying to knock up the wood, I think, by putting it in the smaller cask. Even big places like the Lefroy quarter cask, right, is trying to get that faster interaction with wood with less time in it. So I think they're really trying their hand at creating a good whiskey. And if I give it a quick sip, see if I'm still thinking the same thing. Yeah. Yep. There is still lots of excellent flavor going on here. And I think that Last Mountain has a real winner here. I would imagine, who knows exactly if the aging will go as planned, but I would imagine if you took this exact spirit, and I hope they have, and they kept it in oak for another 3-5 years, I think they'd have just a phenomenal whiskey, because it really is, all the notes are there, all the taste is good, nothing's glaring, there's not a lot of phenol, there's not a lot of bitterness or anything that's going to put you off this whiskey, but there's still a fair amount of alcohol that's kind of floating around, and I think is might put some people off, especially if they're not used to sipping a whiskey neat. So I would definitely say that hopefully they're keeping this stuff somewhere in casks, somewhere in barrels, and I just can't wait to taste their rye, because this is good and I love rye, and I'm sure that they're going to come out with one that's aged just a little bit longer, and we'll probably rate higher on the scale. I really haven't dug into local events this week, so it's tough for me to share. I do know that Wine and Beyond on the south side of Edmonton is having their whiskey festival in the next couple of weeks. I need to look into it. They mentioned they're going to have 200 whiskeys for tasting, so that could be fantastic. If you just hit Eventbrite and just look for a Scotch or whiskey in this area, you'll see a lot of activity going around. So that would be my local tip. Just a comment to the person on Facebook that said that the clearance sale of the liquor barns in St. Albert was a hoax. I'm sorry that you missed out, because there were some excellent deals on some very fine whiskey and Scotch. I think they closed tomorrow or the next day, but there was definitely some actual 40% off, or their spirits was mostly about 40% off, but definitely $15-20 off just about any bottle that you normally buy. So sorry for that, fellow. If you like, there's a few left. There's Flatboat and a few Gibsons, I think, and a few others that they still have on the shelf for about $20 less than you're going to pay anywhere else. So if you happen to catch this today, I think they're going to close down Monday, or maybe they'll go all the way to Wednesday this week, but they're running pretty empty. Anyways, thanks for joining me. Thanks for being my neighbor today and checking out Last Mountain Private Reserve from the distillery in Lumsden, Saskatchewan. I enjoy it, and I hope you can find a bottle and you can enjoy it too. Take care, neighbor.